Well, good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, February 6, 2023. I'll call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. And if you would please join me, if able and willing, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for a regular meeting of January 17th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, that does pass. And that takes us to agenda revisions. Do we have any tonight, Madam Clerk?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We have no special presentations tonight, so that'll take us up to public forum, where speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. Just as a matter of housekeeping, I was looking through, studying the rules today, and I realized in our rules it says under 10.3a, anyone may address the presiding officer during the public forum segment of the agenda regarding any issue not on the agenda. So that's in the rules. If there was something that was on the agenda tonight, that would need to be discussed during that time period. So if council wanted to override that tonight, you're certainly welcome to, but I apologize for not catching that in previous meetings, but that's where we're at for tonight and going forward. So does anyone have anything they would like to speak on for 5 minutes related to city business that's not on the agenda? Evening, Rosemary. If you just provide your name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Okay, does this work? All right.
Sounds great.
Okay, Rosemary Beach, Western Home Communities. Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I'm here again to talk to you about the lack of having bathrooms within the city of Cedar Falls. Now, all I'm going by is what's in the newspaper. So I'm going to quick read some of these. Okay. This was on December 18th. Costs ranging from big infrastructure and quality of the life products to smaller initiative improvements and studies for fiscal years 2023 to 2028. Then they're to adopt by March 6th. And it says the council has given early indications it's okay with including funding for significant projects, which I think that is. This is December 22nd, and it says 212 projects going nearly to $460 million for fiscal years 2023 to 28, involving about 50 different funding sources, okay? Money was pushing millions of dollars in tax increasement financing for a future parking ramp, pushing it back a year. Before spending millions of dollars, staffers must identify a location, conduct a feasibility study, and decide fees for surrounding parking. Now, I just thought, well, maybe you'll build the bathrooms and then you will build the parking ramp around it, because what I ran into a lot of people say, oh, well, wait for the parking ramp. Okay, this is January 19th. The night began with pushing back $100,000 in tax increasement financing proceeds for a future feasibility study on a possible downtown parking structure, originally scheduled for the current fiscal year. It's now not expected to happen until 24. Well, so I'm not going to get bathrooms or restrooms until 24, if that's the name of that. Okay. This is January 22nd. Discussion tends to center on a few items, like a parking ramp or a swimming facility and so forth. And I see where you're planning to remove the railroad spur from West First Street through downtown. Well, maybe you can put a parking route where the railroad track is. I don't know, but you'll have room anyway. Okay, this is February. The city Friday released its application for tourism and economic development funding, replacing what formerly was given out through community betterment grants. The funds are available to nonprofit and governmental agencies and must increase tourism through a one-time project or activity or make significant contributions to and or promotion of economic development. Now, I think that says that we have two organizations in our city who should be interested in having restrooms. The projects and initiatives must show to have a clear public purpose. I think restrooms have a clear public purpose. Then the city must receive applications, and so forth, and eligible requests may be included in spatial equipment purchases, as well as capital improvements, including new construction, renovation, restoration, and installation of fixtures. Applicants are reviewed by the Economic Development Committee consisting of the city staff, including the Economic Development Coordinator and Visitor and Cultural Programs Manager, as well as the Visitors and Tourism Board. The funds come out of the hotel motel tax. I was on that group of people for hotel motel tax and it took 3 times to get that through here. And I think it's a very good thing to try and build restrooms with that kind of money. And it's every reasonable reason to have a decent place for handicapped individuals that can get in and out of a place and not use a restaurant or have to stop and go in a building like that. I think we are better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Does anyone else wish to speak in public forum tonight? Deputy Mayor Brown, just provide name and address for the record, please, sir.
Thank you. Jim Brown, resident at 1004 Tremont. I would ask the council a little leeway as I was preparing my comments for the Bostwick resolution calendar. I realized my comments then were going long. And so per the previous practice, I just sort of thought I'd peel away a little bit of that, not necessarily related to that, but if I could have some leeway to give about 30 seconds.
Sure. Would council have any objections to that? That's fine.
Great. Thank you very much.
Threw this on you.
So the issue with Chief Bostwick really has nothing to do with the public safety model, which has been, I think, put out there on social media. What they are talking about as far as this issue is the paid on call, or the POC program. It's with other city employees that aren't related to the public safety or even citizens that can come and give hours towards their service to the city. It does not relate to the full-time police and fire personnel we have now, and it's been around since 2005. According to the Courier, later tonight, Councilman Ganfield will once again bring up a referral the city needs to study whether or not our public safety professionals are doing okay. Another personal insult to the individuals who serve the police and fire personnel. Can't we leave well enough alone? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Does anyone else wish to speak in public forum tonight? Evening, Mr. Sharp.
Rick Sharp, 1623 Birch Street, Cedar Falls. Since we're about ready to resolve with number 11 tonight, I want to find out with the other individual that was involved in this, with the time card, Mike Nyman. Is his case, are we still investigating that? Or since he retired, this is now a closed case? And we're curious to know how much money was involved in this. Are we going to recoup that? Also, I would support what Jim Brown said. Instead, though, we need to have that study and that public safety model that was promised by a number of you up there.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. So speaking for the dollar figure, it's already been released publicly that was about $24,000 that was at issue that was recouped by the city. And there was another question.
Well, is there going to be further legal proceedings on criminal action looked at that?
That's, as I understand, that's closed. That matter's closed. It's closed as far as I know. Okay, anyone else wish to speak for public comment or public forum tonight? Please.
I'm Whitney Smith. I live on Hawthorne Drive in Cedar Falls. I guess my question is, since the one was closed and this one isn't, guess what's the difference? I mean, I guess that's what I want to know is what's the difference? If one was closed and can be talked about, but it was all in the same thing, I think the public should know. Thanks.
Sure, that has come up previously. It's for the difference in the two cases, not speaking in detail about them, but one was an employee who was not appointed, so that was resolved by city code. That was resolved internally. In this case, as we'll talk in item 11, that is an appointed official, which has to be a different process. It's a much more public process. So that's the key difference between those two cases, why one could be resolved outside of the council chambers and one requires council intervention. So any other person wish to speak for a public forum tonight? Okay, seeing none, then I will call the public forum closed for tonight and ask for Mr. Gaines, do we have any staff updates you'd like to
No
have?
staff updates tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our special order of business, item 2 is a public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, and form of contract and estimate of costs for the Hudson Road and West Ridgeway Avenue intersection improvements project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed about this item?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. With staff comments tonight, to start us off, we have Mr. Dave Wicke, the city engineer. So, Mr. Wicke, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Tonight's public hearing is for not just the Hudson Road and West Ridgeway, but two other intersections for improvements. The Hudson Ridgeway intersection, that's going to be upgraded with a signal, and two existing roundabouts, one at Prairie Parkway and Prairie View Road, and the other one at Prairie Parkway and Brandywine Boulevard. We'll see some landscaping improvements at those two intersections. The total estimated cost for this project in total is $724,625. Of that, there is a private contribution that's going to be for the roundabout landscapes, and the remaining funds will be provided by the general obligation bonds, local sales tax, street construction fund, and a tax increment financing. And I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wicke. Do we have any initial questions from council? Okay, seeing none. Any questions or comments from the gallery? Yes, sir, Mr. Sharp. Come right up.
All right, Rick Sharp, 1623 Burt Street. So I guess my question is, you know, I like the roundabouts. They're supposed to be the biggest thing in safety now. Something needs to be done at that Ridgeway and Hudson Road intersection anyway, but why can't we put a roundabout in instead of traffic signals? If I heard in the past, it was rumored about traffic flow, like UNI games and stuff, but yeah, if you look at that whole area, we put a roundabout at the Green Hill and University Avenue, Green Hill Road access. There's a roundabout there, and that's where a number of people shortcut to leave town. We also are going to have a roundabout at 27th Street, I believe, where the new high school is going to be. Again, that's an in and out route for the Unidome. And then we also have roundabouts all the way in Ridgeway, almost all the way to 58. So why cannot we make this intersection a roundabout instead?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharp. We'll answer that question in a moment. Do we have any other questions from the public? Okay, so Mr. Wicke, are you able to speak to that about the roundabout?
Sure. So the Hudson Road corridor is set up with signals. So the whole corridor is laid out that way. There was a previous traffic study that was done for that whole corridor, and at that time that was the design recommendation for that intersection. For the most effective safety improvements at that intersection would be that signalized signal to go in there.
Okay, thank you. And if you have follow-up questions, I'm certain it's been studied in the past. We can give that information to you by email or just reach out to staff on that for the details. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wicke. Any other public comment on this? Okay, now consider the public hearing closed and bring us over to Part 2E, which is a resolution approving and adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Hudson Road and West Ridgeway Avenue intersection improvements project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any council discussion? Okay, seeing none? Yes, please.
Mr. Wiki, how long ago was the Ridgeway study done, just out of curiosity? And that,
I think that dates back to, I'll have to double check. It was
10
either,
years,
it was like
5 years, 10
2012
years.
or 2018 maybe.
okay, so a little bit recent. So roundabouts were becoming prevalent at the time that study was done, apparently.
Yeah, well, as far as installing roundabouts in the city, yeah, it was before my time here, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Schultz.
So, Mr. Wiki, you said that corridor down Hudson Road is all signaled. Is it traditionally or best flow of traffic if it's signaled at each intersection, or would it not be appropriate because of the flow to put a roundabout there?
So those signals are timed to be able to get that traffic along that corridor in an efficient manner. Yeah, that's just how they're timed. They're set up so traffic can flow.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I've asked this question before because who doesn't love a roundabout? But is it fair to say that the Hudson Road corridor, it wouldn't make sense maybe to have one roundabout when everything else is a signalized intersection, but maybe someday when that road is reconstructed, that at that time, possibly if council approved, what I'm getting at is it because there's not multiple roundabouts, then that affects the way the roundabouts flow and work. Like you don't just stick one roundabout in when there's a bunch of signalized intersections. Am I wrong in the way I understood that when I asked this question years ago?
No, I think you have the right thought there. You know, at some point Hudson Road will get reconstructed, and at that time when that corridor is being looked at for reconstruction, I'm sure we'll have a new traffic study that's done for that corridor, and then we'll have, you know, that information and, you know, go from there as far as design goes, what may or may not happen at intersections.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then it's been motioned and seconded, or moved and seconded to, for a resolution approving and adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Hudson Road and West Ridgeway intersection improvements project. It requires a roll call vote.
There you go. I did.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass and takes us over to item 3, which is a public hearing on the proposed plan specification, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Oak Park Boulevard sanitary sewer replacement project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of
So
publication?
moved.
Second.
Motion, or moved and seconded, and any discussion? And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass, and it takes us to written communications. Do we have any filed by the, or with the city clerk tonight?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Staff comments again. We have Mr. Wiki.
Okay, once again, Mayor, Council, this public hearing is for the Oak Park sanitary sewer repair. And what this project involves is the installation of a lift station on Minnetonka Drive in Cedar Falls, and we'll be installing, you know, 498 linear feet of force main, 166 feet of linear gravity sewer, and some water main improvements also along with that project. Project also includes some replacement of storm sewer, some sub-drains, some concrete and sidewalks, and then the associated landscaping, electrical work, and other miscellaneous items for the project. The total cost for this project is estimated at $442,200, and the city intends to use sanitary sewer revenue bonds for this project.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wiki. Do we have any public comments on this item tonight? Okay, seeing none, then I'll consider the public hearing closed and take us over to item E, 3E, which is resolution approving and adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Oak Park Boulevard sanitary sewer replacement project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Council questions, discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Gamfield.
if I could ask Mr. Wiki, I remember seeing previous pictures, and I think can remember if it was in P&Z's packet or not, but we don't have them here. Can you tell me the direction and which corner of the adjoining streets? Just from a visual recollection, I'm looking at the map in front of me, but can you tell me exactly where this lift station is going to be located that was somewhat decorative?
So where the existing aerial sewer line comes across through that ravine, and it splits those two properties as it comes up to Minnetonka, that lift station will be directly on the opposite side of the street. And then that force main goes back to the east to tie into the sewer on the other side of the ravine.
And that's going to be in the right-of-way, correct?
Yeah.
Essentially? Okay, perfect. That's all I had as a question. Thank you.
We will have to have a temporary easement for the lift station work.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamfield. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. Then it's been moved and seconded to approve and adopt the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost of the Oak Park Boulevard sanitary sewer replacement project, and requires a roll call vote.
Mine's not working. There it is.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and that does pass then, and takes us out of the special order business and into old business. Item 4 is passing ordinance 3023, amending the zoning map by placing property located in lots 5 and 6 of the Midway Business Park in the R4 multiple unit residential zoning district pursuant to the provisions of a zoning agreement upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any council questions? Any public discussion? Okay. So with that, moved and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
No, it went to the Midway Business Park.
This one you want.
Oh, okay. I'll hit it again.
I need to use the mouse.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I didn't know you could.
So that does pass, and it takes us over to item 5, which is passing ordinance 3024, amending the zoning map by removing property generally described as lots 1 through 4 of Midway Second Edition from the R4 multiple unit residential zoning district to the R1 1 and 2 unit residential zoning district upon its second consideration. Is there a motion?
So
to
moved.
approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any council discussion on this item? Seeing none, any from the public? Okay, then moved and seconded and requires a roll call vote. All right.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So those both do pass, and because they're on the second consideration as ordinance change, it means that they need to come back to the council in our next meeting for final approval. That brings us over to the consent calendar, where these items will be acted upon on a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item from 6 through 9? Okay, seeing none. Does anyone from the public wish to pull an item from 6 through 9? Okay, so with that, is there a motion to approve items 6 through
So
9?
moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those items all pass. And that takes us to the resolution calendar, where these, the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a separate motion without separate discussion, on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. I'll go ahead and pull item 11. And does any council member request to pull an additional item? Okay, seeing none. From the public, any additional items from 12 through 22 to pull tonight? Yes, Mr. Sharp. Number 22. Okay, so that's the, I'll read that separately then. Sharp. Okay, any others tonight? All right, so I'll read those other items, or entertain the motion to approve those other items. So this will be approval of the resolution calendar from items 12 through 21. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So those do pass, and takes us back to item 11, which is a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a terminal leave of absence, resignation, and mutual release agreement with John Bostwick relative to employment to the city. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Before opening it for council discussion, I just want to read one part out of Iowa Code ADF. As we have a discussion open tonight, there's a limitation on some things that we're allowed to talk about. It's primarily because of ADF. And ADF Part 20 says, the employing agency shall keep an officer's statement, recordings, or transcripts of any interviews or disciplinary proceedings and any complaints made against the officer confidential unless otherwise provided by law or with the officer's written consent. Nothing in this section prohibits the release of an officer's statement, recordings, or transcripts of any interviews or disciplinary proceedings and any complaints made against an officer to the officer or the officer's legal counsel upon the officer's request. So what that mainly says is similar to your grades. If you attended a public university in Iowa, I can release my grades, but you and I can't release my grades. So it puts the responsibility and the authority on the person who is, on the individual officer to release information that they deem fit. So with that said, I'll open it up for council discussion. Yes, Councilmember DeBoer.
I don't know if it's proper at this moment or not, but we have some amendment here from the attorneys, and I wonder now if we could just go ahead and make a motion to include this in the motion.
Certainly. Would you like to make that motion?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been moved to include an amendment to the document. The council has it in front of us. It was requested by Mr. Bostwick and his legal counsel. Do all council members have it in front of them?
Yes.
Unlike me. Here's my copy. I got it, okay. So just, if we don't have it available on screen, then it probably would be prudent to read it. That's all right? Does anybody object? Okay, so the motion, as was proposed earlier today, and that I understand Councilmember DeBoer to bring forward, is 8 separate items that would be included with the agreement as proposed, or as in the council packet. And that inclusion says, 1, to allow already accrued and earned vacation and holiday benefits as of February 1st, 2023 to be used to extend the retirement date beyond October 15th, 2023. 2, to allow already accrued and earned sick leave severance benefits as calculated under city personnel policies as of February 1st, 2023, to be used to extend the retirement date beyond October 15th, 2023, and beyond number 1 above until at the latest April 30th, 2024. Item 3 says, all benefits used under 1 or 2 above to extend the retirement date shall reduce the amount of vacation, holiday, and sick leave severance benefits that would have otherwise been owed as of the retirement date. 4 says, salary shall be subject to legally required and authorized deductions, including for health insurance. 5 says, no additional benefit shall accrue as of February 1st, 2023. 6 says salary and benefits shall be based on those as of February 1st, 2023, with no salary or benefit increase thereafter. Item 7 says any health insurance benefits for the employee and or family members shall be administered in accordance with city policy and applicable law once the employee reaches age 65. And then finally, item 8 says if agreeable to the employee, the mayor and city clerk are authorized to execute a revised agreement containing these concepts as well as or in lieu of the terms of the currently proposed agreement. So that's the motion that's on the floor. And that has been seconded, correct? Or it hasn't been seconded. Okay, so is there a second for this?
Second.
Okay, motion or moved and seconded for an amendment to the original agreement. Open for council discussion.
I have a question.
Yes.
That's a lot of amendments, and I guess my question would be, does that change the monetary value of the agreement from what it was originally? Have we had time to do the calculations on how that would affect it, how much sick leave? You know, I could keep kind of going down the line, but it basically boils down to what do the dollar amounts equate to with this as opposed to the original?
So, Ms. Roding, I believe, will answer that for us.
Based on our original calculations, which include the amendment items, sick leave, vacation, floating holiday, we have reviewed it on our end with numbers, and that would then read in whole from October 15th through the April 30th date. That would just reduce his severance. Otherwise, if we go with the original agreement, which ends October 15th, he would be paid out that same amount in a lump sum.
So can I continue? Is the severance amount for holiday and sick leave and all that as calculated equal to the amount that would be paid out, you know, continued payments, or is there one higher than the other?
I guess I'm not.
So I think what you're asking, Simon, is his payout amount, based on our calculation, is more than what the amounts would be paid through April 30th. In other words, our calculations would show at April 30th, there would still be a small amount that could be paid out to John.
Yes.
Is that correct, Lisa?
Yes, that is correct.
If we're understanding your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically comparing the severance payout versus the extended payout, which one's more affordable. So essentially what he would extend this in lieu of his sick pay, meaning we would actually save a little money?
Well, I think the agreement right now says that he would still get that paid out. So we see it as that it's the same. We're either paying it out in one lump sum,
Okay.
October, or we're reducing it till April 30th, and then anything left over, he would get paid. So we see it as the same.
All right. And
But it does get him through April 30th, I think is what you're asking.
yeah, and I guess the big question I'm asking is, it's not costing us any more money?
No, it would not.
No.
No.
Thank you.
All right, other questions to start? Seeing, yes.
I guess more of a comment than a question. I guess this would, you know, as a financial planner, I would look at this and saying this benefits, changes the tax year that the money's received, to change the income tax implications is what it's doing, basically. Instead of a big lump sum getting paid out in October, it's spread out.
Okay.
The difference.
Right. Any other questions or comments from council at this point?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I guess I'd like to just say that I would be against this. I'm not in favor of the agreement to begin with, so I just wanted to go on record saying I'm not for this amendment either.
Okay, yep, and this is all just discussing the amendment. So open it up for, no other councils for questions? Okay, so for the amendment, Mr. Sharp.
Rick Sharp, 1623. This part is just for the amendment. I still have reserve my right for the item 11. I'd like to hear some money. I keep hearing dollars. Let's hear actual dollars. Are we talking $150,000, I mean, what kind of money is he asking for, lump sum payouts? That's what we deserve to know, not just vague terms of money. Extending this, we're doing that also. Also, I'd be curious about what is his drop date? When people sign up for the drop, they have to be off everything by their drop date. I'm thinking it's before April 2024. So even with this proposal, are you even following the pension board laws by extending it past his drop date? And even if you allow this, what's he going to be doing? Is he going to be considered a paid consultant until April of 2024 now? Again, just too many questions. This amendment should just be tossed out. I mean, it's short notice. Nobody had really time to research all this stuff, but there's too many questions. Like I said, we want to know dollar amounts. We want to know his drop date, when he is officially going to leave the city, because he already signed up for it. And does this April 2024 deadline even meet the pension board rules?
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. So for an answer on that from staff about the drop date, that's something that's public, correct? And
Lisa has the calculated amount. What I'm trying to be careful about the drop date, though, is if that is a public record. I'm trying not to divulge any kind of personnel confidential record. So I'm trying to be careful about what we're answering tonight.
Question? Could we?
I said the dollar amount we have, but it's the drop date that I'm not sure we can. And Kevin's on the phone, unless Kevin has any thoughts on that. But I'm trying to be careful.
That would be information that the pension board would supply, and so I don't think the city's in a position to provide that information at this time.
Okay, that's City Attorney Kevin Rogers. I'm not going to entertain questions from the floor unless you're at the podium. So yes, Ms. Redding, go right ahead.
I do have figures. Chief's total calculation for his lump sum payout for his severance benefits, which includes the remaining vacation, accrued vacation, an adjustment for floating holiday, and then a calculation on his sick leave remaining on the books, totals $124,751.34. So that would be the total that we would pay in either agreements, the original agreement or with the amended agreement.
So no financial change then to the city.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a quick clarification, that's vested to him regardless how it's paid out, lump sum or stretched out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Other comments from the public for public comment? Yes, Ms. Smith? Well, this is just for the amendment, so feel free to comment for that. You have a chance later.
You did mention before, you said code 80F part 20, I think is what you said, that protects him. So I'm wondering, how is it different from appointed positions versus employed? I would think that somebody who is appointed by the city council, who the taxpayers vote for, should be open book, whereas a private employee is not. Also, I haven't had a lot of time to really look at the drop program, which, darn it, I forgot my question.
We'll give you a moment, it's okay.
Okay, yeah, so I guess I wanted to know the difference. Also, so the council right now has the right to vote if it's going to accept the amendment as part of what they're going to vote for, and then they'll vote later to approve or not the agreement with or without this amendment. Is that correct?
We will have the opportunity to vote, or the council will vote on the amendment first, of whether to include it, and then it'll go back to the original motion as amended, and the council will vote on that.
Okay, so my question is, this money, the 124,000 and change, that is given, if this is agreed upon, what if it's voted down? Is that money still his? Is that what we're saying? I'm just curious here, because what if he was fired tomorrow? Then what?
Okay.
Okay, that was my
Good questions. So for an answer on that, Ms. Roding again?
As far as I understand, I think it would be, I guess, based on personnel policy. I guess I'm unsure with the 90-day notice type situation.
So our calculation is through February 1st, right? The 124,000 is based on him not being allowed to accrue any more benefits after February 1st. So that's why the calculation really doesn't change if it's today or the agreement or whatever. I think what Lisa's getting at is normally we have notice under our personnel policy. I think part of this agreement would be acknowledging that this is really kind of having the notice, I guess. So to answer the question, he's owed the money. I mean, he's owed his severance.
Then there's the question about the difference between a fire chief as an appointed official versus a firefighter or public safety officer under ADF. So, Mr. Rogers, having you on the line here, I understand, or maybe Director Rodenbeck on the personnel side. And do I understand correctly that as a fire chief, he is considered a public safety employee under Iowa code, and so that's why ADF applies?
Right, appointed or employed, ADF applies, and that's why we're governed in terms of confidentiality.
Okay, thank you. Before you, does anyone else want to speak first? Go ahead, Councilor Schultz.
Jennifer, did you say that he's owed it because it's severance, or or is it just those are benefits? He's earned those and accrued those, and they're just, so it's not really severance, right?
Correct. We use the term severance. That's traditionally what we've always used, but you're right. It's his earned time that he's earned plus that he's accruing, every day.
Thank you.
That you're here. So, yep.
Okay. Other questions? Then I'll go back to Councilmember Ganfield.
I don't have anything.
Excuse me.
Harding.
Okay. Sorry, Councilmember Harding.
All right, I'll let you slide this time.
This time.
Just to see if we could clarify more of the question from Ms. Smith about what if he was fired tomorrow. Are we allowed to explain the process of how that he's not an employee that can just be fired because it's under council? Can we go into that, or is that not?
Well, that's open information, but that might be tied more to the original question.
Okay.
So to stick with the amendment here.
Fair.
And then vote on that and then go back. And I think that'd be a good point to bring up.
Fair. Thank you.
So any other questions or comments regarding the amendment itself? And Mr. Sharp, you've already spoken once, so. Okay, so for the drop, that was answered. That's not something we can speak on. And for position, as administrative consultant, that's what's in the agreement. It sounds like you've read that. So the administrative consultant is a position that, Director Rodenbeck, would you want to comment on that? What that entails? Or who'd be the best?
I don't know that I really have any more than what's in the agreement, I guess. It kind of explains in there about what the expectation would be for him. And then again, back to the drop, I don't think that's something we would divulge as a personnel record. We would not be looking into that or divulging that.
And just as it says in the agreement, 2C, it says, in the role of administrative consultant, Bostwick agrees to field calls from fire rescue personnel or assist on consultation basis with other fire rescue operation issues on an as-needed and remote basis. So that's what that entails. And Mr. Sharp, I'm going to ask you to please refrain from speaking at this point.
They said, is he going to be unpaid as a consultant in April 2024? I asked that.
Mr. Sharp.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
on the amendment, I just want to make sure I heard correctly. So the amount of money that would, I will say in simple terms, that it would cost the city if we stuck with the October date versus the April date, it's the same amount of money. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor
Just for
Ganfield.
point of clarity, the amount of owed accrued benefits would not change, but salary would still be accruing, correct?
So I think what you're asking is between October 15th and April 30th, anything we pay out in salary or benefits will be subtracted out of that severance calculation that we've done already. And so everything that's paid, salary, benefits, is going to be subtracted off of that. And when we get to the end, we come up with that he would still be owed a little bit of money at that point. So I'm not sure when you said salaries keep accruing, that's why I'm not sure what you're saying. We're taking that off that amount.
Mr. Mayor, I could comment to that.
Okay, go ahead.
To Mr. Ganfield's question, excuse me. Item number 3 explains that the benefits used under 1 and 2 to extend the retirement date shall reduce the vacation, holiday, and sick leave severance benefits. So it's basically taking the $124,751 and paying it out monthly. Okay. And that should clarify that. The other comment I want to throw in here, it allows the money to be paid out in 2 fiscal years for the city, and Jennifer can verify that as I read it, right? So that would be a benefit to us in our budgeting to have the money paid out down the road, 2 years.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Any final from the public? We've already spoken once, so let's catch you on the next round. So looking at that, then it's been motioned and seconded to add the amendment as read at the start of those 8 items. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that amendment does pass to be considered as part of the original agreement. And with that, that takes us into the general discussion for this item. So any questions or comments? We've not really had a chance for council comment before the amendment was made, so this would be an opportunity to ask questions on the general amendment or the general item.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Ganfield.
I think treading carefully in regards to the ADF restrictions, and then obviously later comment possibly to come on the process of removing, if that's the preference of the council. I am not in favor of this agreement to create a position that doesn't have a very explicit job description and pay out more money for this kind of almost nebulous position existence. So I wanted to go on record stating I'm not in favor of it as it stands.
Okay. And we will have a time after public comment on the overall agreement. So you can do it again later if you want. So looking at any other questions or comments about the agreement itself or questions? Okay. So open it up to the public. If you have general comments about the agreement, you're welcome to speak at this time. If you've spoken before, you're welcome to do so again, because this is a separate issue. Name and address for the record again.
Sure. Whitney Smith. I live on Hawthorne Drive in Cedar Falls. Oh, guys, I came here thinking I knew what I wanted to say and stuff, but I'm getting more and more questions in my head. Like, okay, so now this is his salary for the next, I don't know, well, I guess now it's through April of 2024. So we've agreed to pay this salary for a position of administrative consultant that's really not quite defined in doing anything. Does this mean that does this provide in the city code then that you guys appoint a temporary chief? And if so, are we then paying out more money to have a temporary chief so that person would get a raise to be doing that job? Where does that money come from? Because now I'm assuming we're doing that and we'd be paying 2 people. Also, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, lifelong resident, this looks like liability. This is the only thing I can think of. What does this say to our employees who come to work, do their honest, hard work job every single day, take their payroll, and do good things? Does it say, break the rules, and then we'll pay you more to sit at home and do nothing? Because it's closed and I don't get all the details, it speaks volumes to the public. I think that approving this is going to open the city up to the media, to investigations, to figuring out whatever way this has to become public to do that. Wow. So my request is either to decline this and either have Mr. Bostwick go back to his job and retire when he retires. We'll pay him to do the job and not have to pay a second person, or let's let him go. And I know that that has to be something that's the mayor asked to be done and council will vote on, and then we just roll the dice and see what happens. It's a right to work state, and if you're not doing a good job, if you don't have trust built into your team and they don't think you're doing a good job, then we have a right to say goodbye. That saves us money, I'm assuming. What happens if you guys vote no? Does he go back to work? Is he fired? Is there a lawsuit? We have no idea. We're just being shown this thing and saying, well, this is what it is, approve it, and here's what's going to happen. Well, what else can happen? I mean, tell us our options here. We're paying the taxes. This $124,000 is coming out of our pockets too. Feel like I need to stand up here for 5 minutes because maybe I'll think of another question, and if I sit down, my time is gone.
Well, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Okay. Wow, $124,000. Right now, our neighboring city is without a chief. They're in an interviewing process. Their chief retired. They did not have a consultant come in. It's understood within the city that the people on the department are good enough to lead in the absence of having a chief until one is appointed. I mean, wow, $124,000. That's heavy. So I'm hoping that council will vote no, either put him back to work or kick him to the curb, but I don't think we should be paying somebody to not be doing a job. And we shouldn't have to create jobs for them so that they can get their pay. I think this benefits Bostwick and Bostwick only. It does not benefit the citizens at all. And at the heart of this is the DROP program. And from my understanding, I'm not an expert, but when somebody who is in the police and fire employment, when they reach retirement age, they can either retire and take their benefits, or they can guarantee that they'll stay on for another 5 years, and the city will continue to put money into a side fund for them. And then that money is paid out as a lump sum at the end of those years. And my assumption is that Bostwick feels like he's going to be screwed out of that money, and that's why he's extended his date. And so we are paying to keep putting more money into that. Also extending that out until April, then are we paying for his health insurance until then? Is that something else that we're paying for?
And you are at time. Thank you, Ms. Smith. So to answer the question about the temporary chief, there is not currently an acting chief assigned, and so that would be, with the agreement, the position would be vacated of fire chief, and so a temporary or an acting chief would have to be named, and that would be after 20 days. As I understand it, after 20 days, the acting chief would be paid a higher salary in order to commensurate with the duties. So did I catch that right, Mr. Gaines?
Yeah, I believe for the most part that's right, Mr. Mayor. Okay. We'd be looking at, if this agreement is executed, appointing an acting chief probably within the week, and then starting the process to find a permanent chief.
Okay, thank you. And on the health insurance side, I know that was a question we had an answer to, pretty straightforward.
Sure. So again, just want to clarify that anything we're paying in health insurance between October 15th and April 30th is coming out of that 124,000. So that's, I guess, okay. I'll leave it at.
And if that was it for the questions there. Oh, also, next steps. If it's not approved tonight, then I have the option to issue a memorandum to the council to say I would want to see that the council consider removal of Chief Bostwick from this position as fire chief, and that would be something that council would vote on at the next available meeting. And council, if they motion and second, and there could be the discussion about whether to have the consideration, could once that's approved, that the council is even willing to consider the removal, then there's a public hearing, and that's part of city code for what that entails of a name clearing hearing and the chance for Mr. Bostwick, if you desire to speak. So there are actions after this that could be taken if it's turned down. Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, could I comment to that on public?
We'll let him do it.
Okay.
When we're at council discussion.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Thank you, Councilman.
Just name and address for the record, please, sir.
Josh Wilson, 100 East 2nd Street in Cedar Falls here, right down the road. I just want to say right off the get-go that I don't know Chief Bostwick. I've met him once at the Stuffed Olive with his wife, which is where I'm usually at on Monday nights. So you know I'm really passionate about this issue if I'm here and not there. And I've never spoken to the council before on any public safety related issue. So I really am coming to you tonight simply from a taxpayer perspective and not having any vested interest in anything that happens with our city's public safety department or Chief Bostwick. Also, Mr. Mayor, it's partially your fault that I'm here because I took your book recommendation off your Facebook page, the Bill of Obligations, and one of the chapters in there speaks about the importance of being informed in government. And I am trying to be informed on this issue, and I'm really struggling to come to a reasonable conclusion of how this could be before the council tonight. From what we in the public see, something happened to where the chief was placed on administrative paid leave in October. Now we find ourselves after an investigation, and somehow, since you're not suggesting he be terminated tonight, and there's an agreement that leads me to believe he didn't do anything too bad, and the fact that he's getting a massive, this is insane. I'm originally from Waterloo, and it brings back memories of a former police chief in Waterloo who was paid to be the police chief but was always interviewing. I'm sure the Courier's covered that multiple times, but was anywhere but Waterloo. Well, he was what I would say more of a paid consultant, and I feel like we're going down that path right now. So I know you can't answer if you ever met with Chief Bostwick or if he had the opportunity to speak about if he had an opportunity to kind of plead his case with you. I'm sure he did through an attorney. But in accordance with Iowa closed meeting laws, you guys adjourn to go into executive session for reasons. December 5th of 2023, you went into closed session for 21.5 Section A, which is to review or discuss records. So I assume Chief Bostwick probably wasn't there for that. The 19th, the 3rd of January, the 30th of January, you went into executive session to discuss legal strategy for, well, I assume you were discussing pending litigation or legal strategy, which would explain why you're here tonight with an agreement that was agreed to by attorneys. So where you never did go into executive session was Section I, which would have been to evaluate professional competency of an individual's appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered. So whereas you can't say, and I can only assume, I don't really believe that Chief Bostwick was listened to, or if the council had an opportunity to speak with him before you're now voting on a compensation package for him. City ordinance, as we've already discussed, states that the mayor can fire or can recommend the firing or the hiring of a fire chief, and it has to be approved by the council. So I would assume if you decline this tonight, which I'm encouraging you to do, and it comes back for recommendation to fire, unless he's done something very, very bad, I would hope you'd reinstate him and let him serve out the rest of his time, because that saves the taxpayers money. Mr. Mayor, how much time do I have left?
You've got 2 minutes.
Wow, all right, I'm doing good. Fiscal responsibility is huge, and this is a sweetheart deal, an absolute sweetheart deal. Reading the actual agreement, for those in the public who haven't had a chance to read it, he's immediately losing his access to, he's got to return all of his city property. So there again, maybe he did something bad, maybe he didn't. He's going to become a consultant who has to be available between, a six-figure consultant, who has to be available between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., but he would not be required to be physically present in the city. I'd sit on the beach in Florida if that was me. I've worked in Des Moines. I've worked in Washington, D.C. I've been in closed, top secret congressional hearings. So I understand where you can't speak, but you have to imagine the message and the image that this is sending to the community. I don't want to come up here and just complain and not offer a solution. So I think another bill of obligations talks about compromise. I think you guys can do better. I'd urge you to table this and perhaps go into one of these executive sessions with Chief Boswick, see if you can get your differences worked out. Otherwise, I would ask you to table this and bring it back and keep him working until his retirement date instead of having to pay an acting fire chief and whatnot. And the last thing I would just say as I walk away, promise I'm done. Transparency, you guys. Transparency is huge in government. And tonight, I literally watched an amendment to a legal contract that has been in the paper. It's been publicized, not the amendment and not any of that other stuff. And you threw it out tonight and voted on it. I guarantee you, no one's read about that in the public. No one's heard about it unless they're watching tonight. You can do better. That, in my opinion, is grounds to table this alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Other comments? Mr. Sharp.
Okay, Rick Sharp, 1623 Birch Street. So I'm asking all of you to vote this agreement down. If Boswick has been found innocent in the investigation, there is no reason for him to not return to work and fulfill his role as fire chief in the city. If the city has lost faith in his ability to lead, then terminate or demote him. If he has been found guilty, then he should be terminated. There are numerous sections in city policy and the employee manuals that allow you to terminate and demote employees. There should be no middle ground. If he wants to retire before termination or demotion, then let him. But what you are doing is creating a new job position of administrative consultant with full pay and benefits. Last I checked, I saw no job position for this description in the city records. There's no council meeting that you created this position except for tonight, and no job posting for this position. So after you placed a fire chief on administrative leave while you investigate him for potential disciplinary reasons, how do you come to the conclusion that taxpayers are better off with him as a paid consultant to the fire department working from home rather than in the station as a fire chief? Have there been any Cedar Falls employees in the past that have been awarded this title and duties prior to their retirement? And what kind of precedent are we setting here? While I question if this move is legal under civil service, if it is approved, to me it'll reek of corruption and cover-up. Who's protecting who here? Does he have something on someone in the city or the PSO program that he was able to create this deal? If he does, the council should be more concerned with that and investigate those allegations instead of buying his silence. If you approve this agreement and he is allowed to retire in October/April, he will be on paid leave for over 12 months. Again, who else in the city or anyone anywhere in public sector been allowed this kind of generosity? When the majority of the council terminated the firefighters in 2020, we were only given 3 months of paid administrative leave and a few months' wages severance that did not go towards our retirement, and we did nothing wrong that merited investigation. So why is he allowed to create his own deal to leave the city, but the firefighters were not allowed to? We had to have a city task force create one without our official involvement in it. The taxpayer should not be on the hook for supporting his wages for a full year of him not working just so he can increase his pension and drop money. You should be looking out for all the taxpayers, not an individual. And not only will the taxpayers be paying a chief's salary for a chief who is not there, we will also be paying someone a similar wage to serve as an acting chief. Maybe there are some of you that are torn on how to vote, which I don't understand. Either he violated a policy or he didn't. If he didn't, put him back to work in the station tomorrow. If he did, terminate him. He is not a victim in this. He is a supervisor that should be held accountable for any issues that happen under his watch. The vote to me is easy when you break down its base level. If you vote down the agreement, he returns to work, gets paid his normal wages, most likely retires in October because he's in the drop program. If the agreement is approved, Boswick works from home, still gets paid the same, still retires in October, and now we have to pay an acting chief probably about $120,000 plus to cover for his absence. So basically you're going to be saying that not having him around in the station for about 12 months is worth the extra $150,000. Sounds like a great deal to the taxpayers. So for those that end up supporting this settlement, I hope you let the citizens know how this was in our best interest as taxpayers to approve it. Failing to do so only increases the cloud of a cover-up and corruption. The citizens will continue to ask all of you who supported him, and we deserve an answer. I just don't see how he's fit to remain on the payroll, serve as a consultant at home if anyone calls him, but he can't work at the station. Again, put him back to work or remove him. For me, I would vote it down, have him return to work, and if he refuses to return to work, then you can terminate him for refusing a direct order from the council and mayor. No lawsuit involved. But do not create a new job duty for him that's never been done before for any other former employee in the city. In the end, who will you be protecting with this vote? Bostwick, the city, former and current staff members, former and current elected officials?
1 minute remaining.
Yep. Or will all of you do the right thing for the taxpayers who you are accountable to and responsible for and vote no on this agreement?
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Anyone else wish to speak in public comment? You Mayor, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Jim Brown, 1004 Tremont is my resident. I've watched from the sidelines for the last 3+ years, and frankly, I've had enough, especially as it relates to Chief Bostwick. To reply briefly to the previous couple of speakers, anyone with an organization, as you know, especially someone who has a supervisory position in that kind of organization, after a 4-month investigation with still no closure, it doesn't help to go back to an organization or within your old job because you've been hanging in the wind for 4 months. And I'll get into that, but I just wanted to kind of comment on that briefly. It seems to most that council has only heard one side of the story, and definitely not the side of Chief Bostwick, and I know it's probably because of the law. But the entire process has taken the public from believing the chief would be fired in a timely manner to now looking at an agreement that might be made with the chief that I totally support. Frankly, I don't blame you council members. This has been a terrible, terrible process. Meanwhile, during the past 4 months, Chief Bostwick has been stuck twisting in the wind, not knowing what his and his family's future looks like. Nobody deserves that, especially a 42-year veteran of the Cedar Falls Fire Department. I witnessed Chief John Bostwick make difficult decisions given to him by a city council of the past. I've seen him walk into the lion's den to inform firefighters of the directives of those same council members. He's carried all of the duties out per those directives and the decisions, again, at that same council a few years back. In all those instances, Mr. Green, you were on that council. And I've witnessed the chief's passion, professional, and expertise that has taken our city to an ISO rating of 3, which is top 2.5% in the country, and one of the best ratings for fire coverage in the Midwest. All of it on his command. It seems to me that for such a minor offense, and one in which the city was not damaged financially, that did not benefit Chief Bostwick, a public servant who loves what he does, that this is a travesty from the very beginning. It seems to many that there was no malice by the chief. He wasn't trying to personally benefit or pull something over on the city. He didn't break the law. He's got exemplary annual reviews. Shouldn't that mean something? Unbelievable. At what cost do you do damage to a 42-year firefighter veteran's reputation? Mayor, many wonder if this push to get rid of the chief is because of you. Perhaps there's been a target on the chief's back the past 3 years. I do recall in 2020 when you had strict policy for city employees to always wear masks, even when off duty, and someone caught the chief not wearing his mask in public because of personal health reasons. You wanted him fired. Are there any other times you looked into getting rid of Chief John Bostwick? As the Courier stated last week, the mayor can't speak about the Bostwick incident because of Iowa Code Chapter 22. Could it also be said that that code was broken back in 2019? It was Thursday, September 14th, and on your Facebook page, Mayor, as a sitting elected official, you publicly wrote details on your Facebook page about a former firefighter, Josh Lux's investigation. You were then called out by the council at that time because it was improper for you to even be talking about the investigation, even though you may have had permission. It was a personnel matter. According to your Facebook page on that September 14th, you wrote that you specifically, quote, discussed the case with Josh Lux, close quote. You stated, quote, no interaction between senior and subordinates is ever free of coercion, whether overt or implied, and that you would work with counsel that investigations would be done by someone outside of that person's line of leadership. I believe the initial investigation was directed by Chief Bostwick's boss. Then you gave talking points of what you would do if you were elected mayor. And to paraphrase these, you would work to speed up the outcome.
Mayor Brown, I'm going to ask that you keep your comments directed toward what's in front of us.
You?
Go ahead and speak.
These are just public comments that are being made that ties also to the fact that we're dealing with a veteran here getting ready to be, hopefully having a deal.
Okay, proceed. You have 30 seconds.
It's going to take me a little bit. No, you may be able to make it. Then you gave great talking points, what you would do if you were elected mayor. To paraphrase, you would work to speed up the outcomes of the investigations and that no city employee should have to wait, quote, 10 weeks or more to learn the outcome. We're now at 4 months. Then you would establish a way for employees to report improper or questionable discipline directly to you. You stated that city leadership must foster a culture of trust and mutual respect within our city workforce, and that the residents of Cedar Falls expect city leaders to ensure all of our city employees are treated fairly, with dignity, and with respect. Did you really mean all the employees back then? So, is this a different code now that you're mayor, or were you playing politics 3 years ago and protecting your actions now? I think it goes along with the captain of the ship, the CEO. The buck stops with the mayor. All of this displays at least the desire for transparency. Are we being transparent here with a 42-year veteran of the Cedar Falls Fire Department?
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Anyone else from the public wish to speak tonight? And I will respond to those comments, Mayor Brown. Yeah, Sharon Reginald, name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Sharon Reginald, Lilliput Lane. I really wasn't planning on talking tonight, so if it looks like it doesn't come together very well, that's why. First of all, I'd like to say I too believe John Bostwick should be fired on the spot. I think if he was under investigation for as long as he was, and the city did fine without him as a chief, then to pay for him to do that position would not be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. He was just talked about in a very high regard, and I would just like to say my opinion on some of those points. And the first one is in the Josh Lux case. This will always infuriate me. Well, I
have to be very careful here. It's the exact same issue with Mayor Brown and his comments. We have to be careful to keep it narrowly tailored to the approval of this agreement. And so I don't want this to become a broad discussion of Bostwick's performance or Josh Lux, or so I see some council concerns here already of broadening this open.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to move to let the lady speak.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Not if it's about another person.
What's that?
Not if it's about another person.
I'm not. I'm telling why I think John Bostwick should be fired right now. And
that's not what's before us tonight.
Before us.
I mean, that could be an issue for down the road, but what we're talking about tonight isn't immediate firing. It's whether this agreement should be approved or not.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Can we take a vote tally? We had 4 in favor, 3 against. Let the lady speak.
We didn't have comments allowed on that vote, though.
That was the presiding officer's call for the vote.
I also didn't say anything. Just for the record, I was thinking.
Mr. Mayor, may I say, I don't have a problem with this Reginald saying comments about why,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Please don't interrupt.
I must, on a point of order. We had a vote from the council. Whether it was a vocal abstention or not, we can't sit here and deliberate an item that has been voted upon and moved. Mr. Rogers would back me up, I'm sure, if he's still on the line. I started to get testy, but I called for a motion to allow her to speak. She can share her sentiments.
The vote was 3-3, though, Mr. Greenfield.
If it was 3-3.
Point of order.
Then I will ask.
May I
speak? There's a point of order.
Mine was to let her speak and let her to say but not to bring another person's name. Thank you.
Okay, with that, if you'd like to continue, please.
Thank you. Well, I would just like to say that with the Josh Lux case, it was John Bostwick that first came out in the Waterloo Courier with information on that case, and not then Councilman Green, and that was under Mayor Brown's regimen. And I asked for him to check into John Boswick at that time, which he would not do, or he didn't do, or anyway, but that's where that came from. The other thing is, I would like to read an email when a lot of stuff was going on with the POC and the POS program. A lot of information was given to me at the time. One of the things was an email, and it doesn't say confidential on it. I have no idea where it came from, but it was sent to us, or to me. It was from Craig Birdie, who at the time was the police chief. It was sent on Tuesday, May 28th, 2019 at 6:37 p.m. to Tim Smith. In the subject, it was regarding a meeting reference to the public safety supervisor promotional positions. And he was asking for times to have this meeting. And Tim got back to him and said, I can let you know when we have times tomorrow if that helps. Craig Birdie returned an email that said, sounds good. If you give us a couple afternoon times would be best. We have 3 or 4 planned for the morning, and we'll need some time to fix Chief Bostwick's messes like we do most days. So that came from our public safety department, from Chief Birdie at the time. So my thing is, if you think this is something new that Bostwick just messed up, it sounds to me like there was a lot of lack of respect.
Well, and again, I'm going to have to pull this back, because
and that's fine. I'm good with that. But I just, with what was said with the speaker before, I just felt like something had to.
So
okay. Thank you.
Counterbalance.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone else from the public wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, then bringing it back to council. I want to make a note real quick for what was accused with the Lux investigation. It was said that I inappropriately revealed information or had information on firefighter Lux and brought it out. That was only with his express permission. I would never have brought up any information that I wouldn't even had access to as a council member without discussing it with him first. And in his case, he had already signed a resignation in lieu of termination, so he had no opportunity to come before for a legal proceeding, for any clarification or remediation. So that was the only reason I brought that forward, and I didn't wish to discuss it during council, but a citizen brought it up, not me. And I think it's very important to clarify that. And there are points to this that the timing, how long it's taken, that's a huge regret for me as well, of having this take so long and finding out initially that it was being investigated internally. As soon as I found out, I pushed to have it changed to an external investigator, because you can't get an unbiased decision internally. It's just impossible. So that's why we went through our legal firm, Ehlers and Cooney, to conduct the follow-up investigation. And it was once we found the extent of the issue. So I just wanted to make those points, because that's it's important. So open it for council. Yes, Councilor Dunn.
Mr. Mayor. Okay, so first, I respect the process of closed session. We go into closed session for different reasons by Iowa law, and the reasons the commonality with those reasons is to protect the city. Like as far as say you were going to accrue land, you wouldn't discuss that in an open session. So the reason is to protect the city in order to, I don't know, how am I trying to say it? I respect the process of that, but it does make it hard as far as when we use the favorite word of this council, transparency, because it's not transparent, but it can't be. That we cannot discuss what has occurred in the chambers behind us. So that makes it tough as far as some of the things I want to scream from the rooftop, but I can't. This process, I think one of the folks in the audience said it started, I think our first meeting was beginning of December. Again, we can't say what this council has talked about. So I'm not proud of how long this has taken either. I want to keep this short because I don't want to risk my mouth saying anything I shouldn't, because this is a private matter. But I do want to say there are lots of assumptions, as there would be in this kind of situation. But they are assumptions. None of you know because none of you were there. Even if, well, I'm not going to say that. So I've been thinking about this, obviously. I mean, really, I've been thinking about it since the fall. But today, particularly, as lots of emails roll in as I'm working my job, at the end of the day, I'm making the decision that I feel is best for the city of Cedar Falls. Somebody's not going to be happy, and that's okay. I'm not making a decision for an employee or against an employee. I'm making the decision that is the best financially for the city of Cedar Falls, and what I feel is the best. If I was a employee in the rank and file here, that is how I'm weighing my decisions. I want to be able to lay my head down at the end of the night and feel good about how I've operated as a human. And so I know no matter what, somebody's not going to be happy, and that's okay. That's kind of the part of this job. But as we go through this process, I'm going to feel good about, as good as you can feel, about how I operated as a human and ethically, and how I respected the closed session and kept my mouth shut, as you should when you're back there.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Councilor Cruz, and you had something from earlier.
I was just going to comment again on one of the comments from the crowd, that the $124,751 is a vested dollar amount that regardless of what happens, he's going to get. So bringing that up as a large number to maybe sway opinion it's really irrelevant. That's vacation, holiday, and sick leave severance that's owed to him. So regardless what we do, that's going to be paid out.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Gainfield.
I guess I'd like to state, as Mr. Wilson had pointed out, we did not call for an executive session under 21.5.1 subsection I. I don't see that this is a good way forward. I think there are other options, and so I don't support this agreement. I know it's not the finality that we'd like to put resolution to this issue and move on, but I can't support this agreement. Creating a new position, paying for the weight of that payroll of chief, whether they're acting as chief or consulting, is regardless, we're going to be paying 2 payrolls until October. The 124 is money's due him. It's not even for negotiation on that, but the salary doesn't need to continue if we determine that there needs to be different action. But the fact that we never called a section 21.5.1 subsection I shows the public that we have not talked to the accused about this issue. I can't vote forward with this without having that meeting. I would entertain the idea of tabling if it could be explained how we would have that meeting in advance of voting on this agreement. I don't think that we could, because of the way our city ordinance requires a notice to go out and the council to vote publicly on whether or not they will consider removal or demotion or performance. If that can be attained, could we table this and have that meeting?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Gunn.
Is it wrong to kind of say a general process of what happens in closed session in these matters, like what the options in a general term were? Like, there was a point where we have, I mean, I don't think this is because your, what's the letter called again? I'm sorry. The letter that you could.
The memorandum for consideration of
right.
approval.
That was an option. I mean, from the beginning of this process, that was put in front of us. I can say that, right?
You just did.
I mean, that's not
if I can help you, to the extent that it's in our code that that's the process that must happen.
That is the process in the code. I'm not, that's the process in the code.
Yeah, so it is an option.
Right, exactly.
Okay, other comments?
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor?
Councilor Cyrus.
I've received many calls today that would like to put Boswick back on as our fire chief. I believe he's had 42 years of experience with Cedar Falls. I don't like to throw that away. I don't like that he's been tarnished. I believe that 42 years gives him the benefit of the doubt. If it were up to me solely, I would put him right back on. But the whole thing boils down to what is the best thing to do. For me, I would like to see that reconsidered. I would like to see him put back on as fire chief and finish out his term, and I think that would be the best for Cedar Falls. Thank you. That's all.
Other comments? Councilor Schultz.
It's already been said that we apologize for the length of time that this took, and we talk about transparency, but then rumors get milled around and people come to conclusions that aren't appropriate. One of them being this is not a reflection of the service that our firefighters and our police officers are doing. This was something that, as Ms. Dunn talked about, it's difficult for us to come out and say. And there's things that will, maybe eventually on someone else's part come up with. But I, as well as Mr. Sires, have certainly fielded a lot of knocks on my door at home, email, phone calls that share Mr. Wilson's sentiment of the expense of this. And again, to Ms. Dunn's point of where's the trade-off for expenses. So I had made decisions that kind of led us to this, but based on what I'm hearing from the constituents, and again, agreeing with Mr. Sires to let's see if we can bring him back to work and then proceed from there. Is it difficult for Mr. Bostwick to have to come back and after spending nearly 4 months blowing in the wind, as someone, maybe Mr. Brown had said, unfortunately that's been part of the process when you have to have the investigations and the time that it takes. So thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay, so looking at the issue, been motioned and seconded with the amendment to, let me read that again. So, a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a terminal leave of absence, resignation, and mutual release agreement with John Bostwick relative to employment with the city. So, moved and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Four voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
So that does pass for the agreement. And I'll just note, too, that in the agreement, it states that Mr. Bostwick has up to 7 days from the time the agreement is signed in order to turn it down, or basically renege on it. And then we'd be back where we are today. I know there's been questions about a veto. I don't intend to veto this item, even though it was a 4-3 vote. I had concerns initially because of just the moral question of Mr. Bostwick having the opportunity to present his side of the case. And if council will just indulge me a moment, I just want to make sure that a just decision happens. And it's not to get rid of Bostwick. If there's exonerating information that tells his side, I would love to have seen that. I was looking to veto originally, or considering a veto, because I wanted to provide Bostwick that opportunity to clear his name. And I was worried about that coercion, if he's basically taking a deal and not trying to clear his name because he doesn't think that he can get a fair trial, so to speak. we don't have that opportunity, but I'm not doing the veto because that was his decision to forego the opportunity to say his side. And I can't compel him to speak. So with that, as long as within 7 days he does not change the agreement or renege on it, then it will pass or be how we move forward. So with that, that was our resolution calendar, and takes us over
Mr.
to
Mayor, we got 22.
Oh yeah, 22. Yeah. Item 22 is a resolution receiving and filing and approving the plan specifications and estimate of cost for the Highway 58 Ridgeway Avenue reconstruction project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Sharp, you had a question or comment on this?
All right, 1623 Birch Street, Rick Sharp. So not having seen the entire plans yet, I do know that there is long-range plans in the DOT to actually remodify Ridgeway, so 58 is elevated and kind of swerves into Highway 20, and Ridgeway is supposed to have off-ramps in the future when that gets redone. My couple concerns I would have is that any of the improvements, money that we're putting in, are they going to be undone when the state finally gets around to doing it? And so, like, if so, I wouldn't expect us to put a ton of money in only to see it tore up, 10 years from now on that. Also, it looks like we're going to put a stoplight at Nordic and Ridgeway. Is that what it sounds like? Am I mistaken there? Because there currently is a cheap little stoplight that hangs there, and that's going to get replaced with a real stoplight.
Or Mr.
I can answer your questions when
Okay. So again, this goes back to the roundabouts again. I mean, we already got a couple roundabouts on Ridgeway, and I don't see the harm in that, and we got one like right near it. Certainly we can't have roundabouts for truck traffic because there's plenty of truck traffic going through there on Ridgeway right now, so why not replace that traffic signal with a roundabout? And going back to a comment that's made earlier about when I was asking about Hudson Road, the council member made, it doesn't make sense to have one roundabout in an area with a bunch of signals. I mean, the same things happen on University Avenue. We've got a bunch of roundabouts with one traffic signal on Round Street, and then we're going to have a bunch of roundabouts on Main with one traffic signal at University and Main. So it can't make sense to have it one way and then not make sense to have it the other way. So I guess that's what I'm saying. So let's really look at the roundabouts. We have to, if you guys are going to have a story, let's stick to it and not kind of say roundabouts are good here but not good here. But yeah, that's my concern though. Like I said, with Ridgeway, if we're going to make improvements at 58 and the DOT is has long range improvements for the safety of the location, maybe down the road we don't throw as much money into it if we know it's going to get tore up by the state 10 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Director Shaggy, want to answer that?
I guess I'll start with the first one. The full interchange plan was initially released by the DOT around the time of the 58 and Viking construction. Since that time, the DOT has moved to more of interim improvements, is what we're calling this project right here. But this project is the interim improvements are going to be 40 to 50 years down the road before a full interchange would be done by the DOT. So that is not in the immediate future to do any type of those plans. Regarding the traffic signal at Nordic, that is correct. Right now, today, there's been a temporary signal out there for probably about 3 years since we did phase 1 of the Ridgeway improvements. And if most of you may recall, the Mills site development and our agreement through Mills required improvements to Ridgeway Avenue, which included dual left turn lanes, which is part of this project, and a signal to be at Nordic. Regarding a comment about a roundabout concept was considered at the intersection of Ridgeway and 58, and that was declined by the DOT as that is their jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, hi, I'll be quick. Josh Wilson, 100 East 2nd Street. I just want to make 2 points. Number one, thank you for putting this on the agenda and putting it out ahead of time so I had plenty of time to read it, and I didn't just see it when I walked in tonight. And then second of all, I fully support this. In fact, if we could spend more money, I think we should throw it that way because I've reviewed this extensively, and it's not like a position that was created that I don't know anything about. Thank you.
Any other wish just to speak in public comment? Are you seeing none? Then Bring it back to council. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, then it's been moved and seconded to receive and file and approve the plan specifications and estimate of cost for the Highway 58 and Ridgeway Avenue reconstruction project. Requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we can go out to bills and claims. Is there a motion to approve bills
So
and
moved.
claims for February 6th?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We need a roll call vote.
Oh,
on that.
okay. So any discussion, actually? And any from the public? To catch that. So moved and seconded, it requires a roll call vote. Oh, you got me.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And do we have any council updates and announcements tonight?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Ganfield.
I hate to put you on the spot, Stephanie, but could we get an update quickly on the QR code mapping, parking, restrooms, and things of that nature downtown? Do we have that completed, or when are we scheduled to have those out there?
Chase, you want to maybe address some of those for?
Yeah, I can tackle the QR code one at least. Recently, I've gotten some samples of some vinyl stickers to put on the downtown parking spots signs, and also the trail signs for an interactive trail map. We're trying to work with the Intercog and make everything consistent with Waterloo and Cedar Falls in regards to the QR codes at least. So,
cool.
Any other updates or announcements? Seeing none, then over to council referrals. Tonight we have a few that were provided ahead of time. Grateful for that. So council have a chance to look at them. So one is for item 24. We have referred to the Public Works Committee a request for no parking on Blue Bell Road. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Is there
Open for-
specifics as to where on Bluebell Road?
That'll be part of the discussion. So go ahead.
Is there specifics as to where on Bluebell Road?
Bluebell Road.
The initial referral came from a resident, and I believe the consideration is for the south side of Bluebell Road near the Mercy One clinic by the Quick Star there with the cross section with coneflower.
Okay.
So,
Question?
any more questions for the validity of the referral to send over? We don't get too much into details of
And
it.
then
but
study it and then present.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But do you have enough information to think you could vote on the referral? Okay. So moved, and we don't do for the public, we don't do referrals, public comment on referrals. So it's been moved and seconded for that referral. Any final comment? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that passes. That'll go as a referral in a future council meeting or a committee meeting for Public Works. 25 is refer to the Public Works Committee a request to review snow removal practices and policies. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Open for discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Sires.
I wonder if this would be better in October or November, if we could get through the rest of this year. I know that snow removal, I did a ride-along with Brian here the other day. A friend of mine, Bill Carr, always used to say, I can make you look as good as what you can afford. So it's kind of a trade-off. I mean, we could get all the snow gone. I'm always glad to talk about it, but it just costs more money. I'm for it if the guys want to talk about it. If you want to talk about it halfway through this year, that's fine with me too. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay. Then it's been moved and seconded to refer to the Public Works Committee a request to review snow removal practices and policies. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that does pass as well. And then item 26 is refer to the Public Works Committee a request for a four-way stop at Lone Tree Road and Center Street intersection. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and discussion?
So this was a situation with the construction that had been on Center Street in this past year, and the improvement in the traffic that the community has seen, and they have requested the neighborhood association and other folks in the community to make that a permanent situation at that intersection, a four-way stop at that intersection. Currently now, the Lone Tree is a stop and Center Street is a through.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Dunn.
is it appropriate for me to ask, because I believe when I was not on council, this has been discussed, and I understand this is a new council, but has there been a study and a recommendation for that intersection previously, or I know it was talked about before?
Sure. Director Shaggy, can you answer that one?
I can say that in my 10 years here, that intersection's been studied twice, to my knowledge. Most recently, I believe 2018, with a recommendation that it remains how it currently is.
All right. Yes, Councilor Cruz.
Mr. Schrage, was there a consideration, I think, at that intersection for a roundabout? There was a desire, or I'm thinking of a different intersection up there?
That's correct. That's a little before my time. Ron might have more information on that. But.
Yes, I believe there was consideration for a roundabout in that particular intersection with even some conceptual drawings, but that's probably going back quite a few years now.
So if we do this referral, we would include the possibility of a roundabout, if we so desire?
We can, just there's a big order of magnitude difference in price when you're talking about a couple of stop signs versus reconstructing the whole intersection. Just
saying, for comparison's sake.
I guess just
Absolutely.
for some perspective, when we hire consultants to do a traffic study, whether a signal warrant analysis, four-way stop, review of roundabouts, we had one last year that was approximately, I believe it was between $6,000 and $8,000. Mr. Wiki might be able to speak to that, but it was for a review of a traffic signal. So, I mean, there's some work that goes into these.
So I would compel the council to go ahead and move forward to putting this on for committee discussion, if nothing else, to allow public to come and speak more to this as it's not just the traffic study, it's the folks that drive through that every day and their wishes.
Okay. So we have enough information now to be able to send it forward. Okay. So it's been moved to refer the Public Works Committee a request for a four-way stop at Lone Tree Road and Center Street intersection. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Yeah, by voice I'm hearing an aye as the ayes having it. So that does pass. And 27 will be referred to the Public Works Committee a request to review pedestrian crosswalks for University Avenue and Center Street.
So
motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for discussion.
So along the same line of not just a study, but the comments from the public on what they perceive as concerns that they have at those intersections. The university, I believe Mr. Ganfield, maybe someone has had a close call with a citizen, particularly at a time of day when the sun is coming down the University Avenue, where it's difficult to see that the white flashing light, and again the pedestrians are in the crosswalk before they are seen. So concern there. And Center Street has been a point of discussion again from the neighborhood association, from parents from North Cedar, and the concern of losing their stoplight that they had. And nonetheless, that's a past conversation that we've had more than once, and understandable of what the DOT has said. But again, it's studies and DOT, and it's still up to us to decide what we're going to do at those intersections, so, and crosswalks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else we need to discuss for that referral going forward? Okay, so moved and seconded to refer to Public Works Committee a request to review pedestrian crosswalks for University Avenue and Center Street. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we'll have ayes. Raise your hand, please. 2, 4, 5. And nays? 1, 2. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do that from now on because my hearing is not the best.
What?
Huh?
No.
Getting old. 28, referred to the Public Works Committee a request to review traffic patterns for student pickup and drop-off at North Cedar, Aldrich, Orchard Hill, and Southdale Elementary Schools. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Additional question, comment on that?
So obviously this is a business between the city and the schools, and work that they've already tried to accomplished, but I've not only heard from Ward 1 and schools in Ward 1, but again throughout the city, and trying to come to resolution with the safety of picking up and the students after school. You know, during the morning you have random drop-offs. They're not everyone lined up in the mornings. It's in the afternoon when it's pickup time. For lack of other places to have this discussion beyond the school is where we are looking to have discussion about there isn't one magic solution to this. I think there's multiple questions that need to be asked on alternating or certainly building a second street or an additional street is maybe in the Aldridge. We can come to some resolution there, but that's the point of this is the after school's done, cars on Center Street line up both ways, clogging off, shutting the street off. And again, I've gotten calls that, you know, if there were to be a case where vehicles needed to get through for emergent or just going through there, the traffic is stopped.
Okay, thank you. So anything else you need to discuss?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Sires?
Aldridge School as well, they have a bottleneck that goes around from the south side to the north side of the school. And there needs to be a double lane there because it all gets plugged up with traffic. Also, it needs to have that street run to the north because no matter what, if you bring it from the south, it doesn't matter how many streets, it'll still get bottlenecked around the school. That boulevard was not a good idea, so I'm with Gil. This needs to be talked about, and I'm in favor of it.
Okay. So anything else? Yes,
I have a question. I mean, I don't see Hanson on there. Why was Hanson left out?
I hadn't heard from anyone from Hanson, but we can certainly add Hanson.
I think if you're
All schools.
Pete?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Dunn.
I'm not, I just think that to assume that these things are not discussed extensively between the leaders of the schools themselves and city staff. I know particularly for North Cedar, when I had a concern from a citizen one day, I reached out to staff, and it sounds like besides the principal and the staff at North Cedar, there's several departments on it here in our city staff. I think part of it is there's a different culture than, you know, we have more people, I don't know, for whatever reason, kids aren't walking to school. I know we've had changes of, you know, as far as North Cedar, they don't ride the bus. I don't know what the issue is, but I think there's a change in the culture of getting kids to and from school that we didn't have before when that school was built. So my concern is are we taking more staff time when this is something that they've already been working on in the past, I guess, is my concern.
I'd be interested in hearing the solutions then if it's already been worked on.
Well, I don't know that there may not be a solution.
So then I would recommend that we proceed to come to a resolution.
Okay. So,
Mr. Mayor, one of the questions that I asked before you vote is maybe some direction to staff as what you're looking for when we have this discussion, because these are some pretty big type of studies. And so what are you looking for initially? Is initially just maybe identifying the problems, and then we can look at what we want to do for solutions and partner with the school district to see what those are? Or are you looking at this first time to come back with some type of solutions? Because I think this one is a pretty tall order.
Yeah, I would throw into that to say if we could at the start just do like a problem study first to see where the issues are, and then in that meeting when the presentation is given, the staff could present where the problems are seen without going into the what we call a review here. It's a pretty broad scope. So would that be okay to start out with, and then maybe have a follow-on meeting after that?
That's fine with me. I know Mr. Sires and Ganfield.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to invite the school principals of each one of these schools. Nobody's going to know better the problems than them, and I'd like to have them come in and talk to us about traffic around their school. I think they are the best ones to come to a committee meeting and talk.
And that would be our first step, is to reach out to them, sit down, try to map out where they see some of the problems. But coming back with solutions again is a little bit, but so I think that's what we'll probably try if this is approved, is going to the school district and trying to, with these elementaries that were named, go ahead and try to identify what some of the problems or concern areas are.
Okay.
Mr. I think you are
That cover the
pretty,
scope?
I think you're pretty right on, Mr. Gaines, of that's what this was going towards. Certainly not gonna have you come up with a solution for every one of these. Mr. Sires' point of let's bring in the people that are firsthand see this every day. I would also ask to Mr. Burr's point of adding Hanson and any other schools at the.
I mean, there's.
Yeah, there's Pete.
Cedar
Holmes,
Heights. There's Pete. There's Holmes. There's the high school, and it's
Mr. Mayor, if you wanted to just leave it open, we can talk to the schools and identify all of where.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Gainfeld.
Just grab a point of clarity here. I don't have it directly in front of me, but if I recall, our policy states that we have the option of referring to staff, to committee, to some other commission of the city. In this instance, would you be referring it simply to committee for us to come up with a discussion and marching orders, or would you want to frame it up a little bit better? I guess I'd like to save the exorbitant amount of staff hours that are expected by providing that clarity. Are we asking them to give a full-blown report recommendation for how we can fix these concerns, or do we simply want to meet as a committee in the only avenue we have as a body that's restricted by open meetings laws? If this is simply a discussion amongst us from which we can get a consensus and then refer to staff, it's much more innocuous than giving them marching orders. And
Yeah, maybe I wasn't clear, but that's exactly what I just asked Mr. Gaines to do.
Okay.
But that would be, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Sires.
But that would be the reason to bring those people right directly to us instead of having it filtered through staff. Staff doesn't have to spend a minute's worth of time on it.
Yeah.
This should come directly to our committee. We'll ask the questions to those principals on what's going on, and we'll decide where the issues are and how we can fix it.
So, Mr. Gaines, would that be an invitation that you could extend on behalf of council to those principals?
Yes, sir.
And to the school?
Okay, so is that clear what we're looking at here? What do we have it captured now? Yes.
I mean, I hate to further expand by wasting time talking, but I mean, and I'm all for safety and for the schools and for everybody, but now all of a sudden, that's a huge ask. The principals are going to come out and tell us I would assume that if there were big traffic issues, the principals would already be talking to us and to the school board. And while I respect that people reach out and we need to promote that, has any principal or teachers reached out to anybody on council about this?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This started when I started to get on with Casey Reynolds coming to me saying that she had a big issue up around Aldrich School. This is where the whole thing began. And coming in from the south and needing a double lane and having stacked traffic, all this stuff has gone on for these, I guess I've been on 3 years now. So I would like to see them, the principal, if we invited them in to talk about their issues, I think it would be a perfect way to get it done. And it has gone on a long time. And I just got reached out to at church here just 2 weeks ago that they said every day they have to go out and try and move traffic that's stacked up on that single lane. So this has gone on, at least at Aldrich. I don't know about the other schools, but that's where I get everybody talking. So.
I understand. And Aldrich, I think, is a special circumstance, and we have been working through that. And I'm not opposed to this. It seems like a huge ask and a huge, thing to do when we don't know that there is any issue.
Well, there is. I believe there is an issue, and people. It's not every principal that have reached out. Certainly, plenty of parents is how I got the list of schools here. So we're not asking for again come up with a solution to every one of these traffic patterns. This isn't a huge ask. It's, hey, invite, if they decide to get together and they have Dr. I'm going to mispronounce his
Petty.
name. Yes, come and speak on behalf of all of them, then that's who we'll ask those questions to.
I can invite the Aldrich School principal. I'd be glad to.
I was just getting some clarity. That's
Okay,
fine.
so do we have enough information now to move forward?
I would just make
Go
a
ahead.
quick comment that some of these points here we're narrowing down quickly. I don't think every school is going to have a problem. Every school might want an adjustment, but to say there's a problem to take action, we will find out real quick. Won't be every single one, to Simon's point, but I don't think it's going to be that big, personally, but maybe.
All right, thank you. So with that, we have enough information now to refer. So the motion on the floor is referring to the Public Works Committee request to review traffic patterns for student pickup and drop off at North Cedar, Aldrich, Orchard Hill, and South Elementary Schools, plus additional schools as needed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that does pass. And are there additional referrals?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Ganfield.
I would like to, as required by Council Policy 1121, I provided a forthcoming referral in writing under the pressing circumstances clause. So I'd like to move to refer to the Public Safety Committee a meeting on February 20th to discuss, draft, and recommend to Council a request for proposal to be sent to firms capable of assessing our public safety department.
Okay, it's been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Mr.
Open
Mayor.
for discussion.
If I may. I think I want to make sure I put some framework around this so that it is understood what we're asking for and what we're not asking for. This is not an attempt to dismantle any structure. This is simply a meeting of the Public Safety Committee where we will draft a request for proposal so that we know what we are asking for from an external assessment entity. My intention would be that the committee members will draft and recommend to council at large to send out a request for proposal. This would be an intermediate step. The end game of this request for proposal would be that it would provide hopeful respondents that could perform a public safety assessment so that we can do, as Director Olson proposed in his special report, that we continue to evaluate how we're doing. We had a lot of good numbers about our model when it was in implementation stages and after the fact, and now we need to do the due diligence of verifying that it's delivering on its promises. I would ask for clarity, Director Birdie to provide a couple of recommendations if they have some that they're already known, but other than that, we will draft that RFP as a committee.
Is there any other discussion?
Is there an expected dollar amount for this consultant?
For the RFP, $0 for
Well,
us
if
to
you're gonna-
craft the RFP. That RFP could contain the amount that we're prepared to pay a firm.
That's a little premature for that
right.
dollar figure.
Yep.
Yeah, I just, because it's budget season and it's not in the budget, this is why I asked.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the referral?
To Mr. Mayor, if I may, just as a response, I don't want to get the cart before the horse, nor do I want to be standoffish. I've talked to a few firms, and it was around 25 to 55,000, depending on the depth of the proposal. So we can really control our destiny there. I reference other issues where we've already added some funding needed. So I'm not overly concerned about being able to find funding sources at this time.
Okay, thank you. And any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Dunn.
I'm concerned about funding sources when we have been stripping our budget, but that's the other part, and I know that I'm repeating myself, but to me, the proof that this is working is the fact that we have folks delivering and caring for our community day after day after day after day after day. So we had this proposed earlier this year. I'm proposed to table it and have it discussed. There'd be something more appropriate to discuss at goal setting. That wasn't brought up at goal setting, which I assume is because there wasn't 5 or a majority of people to bring it up. I also am concerned if this did go through, where are we finding funding for this?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor.
Again, I would reiterate that's very premature to address what funding is going to be required. We would wait to get respondents back from this RFP, and it's clear that we may not get any responses. This may fall flat on its face. This is simply a discussion to find out what we're asking. If I may, if you'd indulge me, Jen, or Mrs. Rodenbeck, sorry, we are performing well as a financial system, yes? Actually, Jen, I don't know if you heard me. Or you just don't want to be put on the spot? Sorry.
Well, no, sometimes it's what,
we're performing
what's meant
well
by that, I guess,
financially.
you know,
We're
sometimes.
we're winning awards for how we
Sure.
handle finances.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Are we ever audited?
Yeah, we're out in it every year.
Okay. Cool.
Other comments? Okay.
So are we looking to audit every department that is in the city, or
No.
just checking a few of them, or just this one?
As I chair the Public Safety Committee, this one is close to me. I would also say that the merits of this discussion have been, or this assessment and the need for it have been discussed and should be obvious. To reiterate rather simply, I believe that the intended outcome of this assessment would be to ensure effective public safety operations and reinstill public trust in their services. I am in no way insinuating that we don't have services being delivered. This is simply an opportunity. The assessment, should it come, again, the cart before the horse here, is simply an opportunity for us to work on continuous improvement. This is not an overly politicized issue, though we let people make it into that. I would love to have this wrapped up before election season so that we have done the work of verifying and proving to our citizenry that we've had an external assessment and it has shown everything that we claim it is doing. We say that there are facts, but I can't find them. Let's just assess for continuous improvement as our prior public safety director had proposed and our current council had accepted. It's just a matter of good due diligence to continue to evaluate what we can do. An external assessment would provide us the opportunity to get someone to look at our potential blind spots. It would also give us the opportunity to have a diverse, innovative vantage point that we don't possess internally. And again, it would help us to reinstill trust. And that's the rationale behind why this department, there's distrust there. Let's solve that together.
I'd also just add as a point that for other departments, it hasn't had nearly the shift or change that public safety has. So I would question if there was as much a need to do an assessment. It's in the strategic plan, the special report that we want to do assessments from time to time. So just wanted to make that clear. Anything else? Okay, then it's been moved and seconded. And would you indulge us by reading the motion again?
To refer to the Public Safety Committee for the members of that committee in a meeting on February 20th to discuss, draft, and recommend to council a request for proposal to be sent to firms capable of auditing or assessing our public safety department.
Okay, thank you. So moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, hands for aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And nay. 1, 2. Okay, so that does pass. Any other referrals tonight?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
Recently we had a project turned down in the industrial park, and then there's been an offer come forward since then. And it's a situation where they potentially want to buy land in an area where we've had a TIF perk with guidelines to promote bringing in businesses that employ people, to bring in families, buy our homes, spend money in our downtown businesses and so on. I'd like to review and have staff give us the current policy and guidelines for when a business would qualify for the free lots versus buying land, and then if they're allowed to buy, what price do they pay? Have we updated the price with inflation that's gone skyrocketed? What type of businesses will they complement the current businesses? Those sorts of things.
Okay, so can you phrase that as a motion, please?
Make a motion to
So Jackie can write it down.
refer to a committee, not sure which, to review the industrial parks guidelines and policies for what qualifies for the free land and TIF program versus buying land and then not getting the TIF and other perks.
Okay. So moved. Does everybody understand that? Is there a second?
Second.
Moved.
Probably should go to community development, would be my guess.
Well, it's economic development rather than community development.
True.
And so I've been toying with the idea of an economic development committee, but it's not ready yet. So maybe that's a committee of the whole if council doesn't mind.
It's fine.
Okay. So we'll refer that to committee of the whole if that's all right with you. Okay. So moved and seconded. Any discussion for it? Okay, seeing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, I have that as a aye then. And any other referrals tonight? Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you so much for attending tonight, everyone.